sense of this heat. This night wasn't formed by darkness, but of this heat. And I was sitting against the side of my window in the Bronx this night, trying to remember what the heat was like in Los Angeles, and why it was so different from the heat in the Bronx, and why different nights and days were formed by it, and why each city sounded different, and why the sounds, the acoustics, formed different nights and different spaces between people, between lovers. And I saw this guy walking across the street to this bodega on the corner, and it wasn't, well, I didn't really notice his walk or what he was wearing. It was the sound his boots made on the concrete, and the glistening of the sweat on his neck. It was too dark to see the features of his face. And just the sound, the movement, the glistening of his sweat, I needed. Oh shit, you know. I needed to own it. No, I needed to be owned by it. I didn't want to know his name or anything. I just wanted to know him by the taste of that sweat and by the way his body would feel against mine, in me. How that movement would feel in me. How his weight would feel on me when he'd relax. How it would sound against the walls of the room. How he'd breathe. Not what he'd say, but how his voice would sound in the room, against the walls. How his throat and chest would feel as he moaned. Anyway, a few hours later, I didn't want him to leave. I needed for him not to leave. I didn't want to ask him any questions or anything. I didn't want or expect him to ask me any shit. But there were still things I wanted him to know. Or I wanted his body to know. So while we were still lying on the floor, and as I licked the sweat from his neck and lips, and it tasted like the best fucking wine, the deepest, most complicated wine, I started to tell him stories to keep him there. The first couple I told with my body, and he understood it with his. And the sound in the room confirmed it. I wanted to tell him secrets just with the tone of my voice. Not with what I said or anything. Like that a lot of people don't know. Or it's not really important. But the first story of the Arabian Nights. That the truth sung is closer to it than the truth spoken. I'd swear by that. I wanted him to understand. I wanted his body to understand that I knew that I couldn't let him leave, that I'd lose everything. So I started telling him the story a friend told me, and I heard her voice so clearly. I decided to teach the truth by telling it in first person.